Hi everyone. Welcome to Sprouts LinkedIn Live. Today we are going to talk about or discuss about how to build a winning sales framework for SaaS startups. And to do so, we have Mor Assouline with us. I'm so excited to have you for this session, Mor. Just to give a brief intro about our speaker, Mor is a founder at FDTC SaaS Sales Consulting and Training, and a former VP of Sales for multiple early stage startups. He has a proven track record of building and scaling GTM teams. And very interesting part is tripling ARR in just 12 months. So more, we are really looking forward to learn a lot about you on how to triple the ARR and gain a lot of experience on how to build processes, playbooks, and overall build the performance of the sales team. Firstly, thank you so much for joining and looking forward to discussion.
Yeah, you bet. And fun fact, I recently dropped the F in my my company name. FDTC was getting too hard for people to say, so I just dropped it. So now it's just demo to close, so DTC.
Oh, got it. So more, I think I was just looking at your bio. Like very interesting piece which has come up is like you quit your first job within an hour due to fear of sales and avoided it for 3 years, right? And eventually you have ended up building like rockstar sales team, being like VP of sales multiple times, where you have helped A's to go like close deals 60 to 80% and reduce sales time by 75 days to 25 days. How does this transition happen, right? Like would love to learn about what was going on, and how did you go through this transition?
From quitting my job from sales
Yeah.
and starting it,
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
yeah, it wasn't an overnight thing.
Hmm.
I think eventually I couldn't find a job anywhere else, and I didn't have an experience, and sales is just a job. Most people don't choose sales; they sort of fall into it. So I found myself back in sales a few years later, doing real estate and cold calling and door knocking in real estate, and I got a mentor and all that. And then a year of doing cold calling and door knocking in real estate, and I got a part-time job doing that cold calling for Allstate Insurance. I got over my fear of sales, and I was like, all right,
Hmm.
cool. I now have confidence, so let me now look for a sales job. And I ended up just pivoting into tech because I thought that was what was going to be big, and I guess I was right.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
and then I joined into a few startups. A couple of them failed, ran out of funding, and then the third one is a company called, still around today, a company called Practice Panther. It's a legal
Right.
tech SaaS company. And
Hmm.
first, I was the first or second employee. I don't remember anymore. And then within 6 months, I was VP of sales. And when I joined, it was doing zero in ARR,
Okay.
and it got acquired, only within four years or so. Um, and so it was a mixture of like just self awareness and like being aware of my flaws and being aware of the like when I would go from job to job, I realized like it's not the job that's the problem, it's me. And so being very self-aware, and till this day I'm extremely self-aware, and I have a journal and I write down things about myself that I notice that I do that I like or I don't like, and I try to work on it. So I would say, how did that happen? It was a self-awareness journey more than a skill journey.
Got it. Got it. Great point. And more like a lot of audience here would like to learn more about your journal. Can you talk more about it, like so that we can also follow and learn few things after maybe this
The
live?
journal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the journal, I don't do it as recurring and religiously. I do it whenever I feel the need to.
Okay.
But there's different chapters within my journal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One chapter is a relatively new chapter. It's called More 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Okay.
More 1.0 is where I am today. The More 2.0 is where I'd like to be. And so I write down things about what would, in an ideal world, if I can snap my fingers and I am the person that I would look up to and be, what would that person think like? what would they feel, how would they behave, what would they do, um, and I write all those things down. So, for example, More 2.0 is extremely decisive. My More 1.0 is a little indecisive. Um,
Okay.
More 2.0 has an abundance mentality. More 1.0 isn't thinking in abundance. And so I write all these things down, and I try to pick a handful of these things and try to behave in a way, behave as if I'm already there. So I write my future a note to my future self, and I behave in a way. So, for example, if I want to think, if I want to wake up in the morning and feel like I'm not like missing anything and I have everything that I need, I'm just going to
Mm-hmm.
behave that way. And when I behave that way, first I have to think that way. Once I
Correct.
think that way, I will then behave that way. Like I will do things, the actions. And then once I do the thinking and the actions, then I am just that person and I end up becoming a new person. So that's like an example of a chapter that I'll write. I'll also write, there's a chapter called Not to Worry. And this
Not to
chapter
worry.
is like all of the things that I used to worry about that ended up working out, big things, small things, whatever it is. And I write it down, and it's almost like a note to my future self. So in the future, when I'm dealing with a situation where I'm worried, I'll pull up this chapter within the notebook and I'll look back like, oh, wow, like, yeah, I remember I was worried about this and I was worried about that, but it all worked out. And that gives me a little bit of clarity. Um, and I think people get too caught up in their head, and sometimes like you give advice to a friend or whatever it is and you see it clearly and they don't. It's because they're too caught up in their head. So I wrote a little note when I had clear thinking. I wrote notes down to myself, that way when I don't have a clear head I can go back and take advice from myself. Those are a couple of chapters that I have.
Lovely, lovely. No, pretty interesting stuff, more.
Mm.
Moving on to, uh, talking about your sales journey, and more, one of the very crucial part to be a successful sales leader and doing it repeatedly, right? Playbooks plays a very important part, right? Because that is more repeatable and that also helps you achieve scale, right? Like, could you walk us through process of creating a customized GTM sales playbook and why it is essential for early stage SaaS startups? And in your view, how it is different from early stage versus the late stage companies, right? Like, can
Yeah.
you talk more about it?
Well, early stage companies typically don't have a playbook. It's sort of scattered. If they have anything, it's sort of like just scattered on Slack, text messages, Google Docs. So they don't really
Mm-hmm.
have anything. um, and even some later stage companies don't have a playbook. But I would say like the general consensus is they do. Yeah, you can't grow. I mean, like you start a company, you're early stage. You can't create a repeatable sales process if you don't know what good looks like, if you don't have a repeatable sales process, right? Like, how do you know what good looks like? How do you know what you should say on a call? How do you know what the email should be? Uh, what happens when a certain situation occurs? How do you react to that? And so if you don't have a playbook, then it's just sits in people's memories.
Mm-hmm.
It's very inefficient. And so a playbook just creates standard operating procedures. So when you hire new people, there's a standard operating procedure for onboarding and ramp up. There is an operating procedure for um, how to run demos, how to run discovery, how to do outbound. And that creates a self-sufficient team, so they don't need to constantly reach out to their sales leader or whatever it is and ask questions that they can find out on their own. It's measurable. So uh, if you track it and it's repeatable and it's as a process, it's also measurable. I like building out sales playbooks in Notion. I think it's just very dynamic. And
Okay.
usually for all my clients, I build out their sales playbooks in Notion and they use it. And the way I think about a sales playbook is it should be treated like a living and breathing document, which
Got it.
means you're constantly feeding it. You're constantly maintaining it. It's not a lot of playbooks. They're built and then they're forgotten about and then they're very outdated. And so when a new hire is joined into the company, they're going through really outdated information, outdated product, outdated feature explanations, outdated everything. And so it should constantly be updated. That's how I think about
Got
it.
it. Got it. And more, who literally have to own this playbook? Like, it is like VP of sales, or you have some sales enablement team who owns this playbook. That's the
Yeah. So
first part.
so if you're
Yeah.
early stage, there's probably no enablement team. um,
Okay.
So if I again, a lot of companies end up hiring me, and I work with the sales leaders and the team to co-author the playbook.
Mm-hmm.
There are parts of the playbook where I think the salespeople should co-author it. I would say the
Mm-hmm.
top performing salespeople, and they should
Okay.
co-author the parts that have to do with sales. Um, and then again, it's a collaborative effort. So, for example, um, I built out co-authored a playbook with a company, SaaS company.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, a few million in AR. They have someone in product marketing. They have someone in regular marketing, and then they have like someone in onboarding, whatever, like a specialist. So we co-authored. Product marketing would take care of the product marketing stuff. We had a section in there about like the tech stack and how to use it. So that person, that like the RevOps person, would
Mm-hmm.
handle that part of the playbook, and everyone has like a piece. So
Okay.
that's how I do it.
Got it. Got it. And more a quick double click on that. Like, uh, how should we think about starting a playbook, right? Like, it is what objectives we should keep in mind. Like, the objective is to, okay, if any A is going to join us, the ramp up time is going to be lesser. That's one. Or hey, you know what? Like, this is the best in class process. If you adopt this process, you can faster your sales cycle and give better conversions. And if it's the latter one, what is the best in class, industry averages which you have seen in your journey? Like, hey, you know what, like the sales cycle reduced by, let's say, X percentage, and your conversion goes up by Y percentage. Like, just wanted to get some real life, like examples and metrics around it, like importance of labor.
So if I were to rephrase, if I were to repeat that back to the question, you're asking what are like examples of like what good looks like in terms of metrics.
Yeah, so there are two parts to this question, right? The part one is how to think about building a playbook, sales playbook, right? And if you define an objective, the objective is to make sure that if A's are joining the sales team, the ramp up time should be faster, right? That is an objective. That can be objective one. Or objective two is, hey, you know what? Like, a playbook helps you in closing deals faster and better,
Hmm.
right? So how to think about defining then objective while building a playbook?
Yeah, it's both. It's both for
Okay.
ramp and for continuing education. There
Mhm.
should be chapters within the playbook that's for a new onboarded AE. Like there should be a 30, 60, 90-day section within the playbook that
Mhm.
tells the AE what to focus on. A
Okay.
lot of onboarding is like just a Trello checklist that the AE goes through. So there should be, I like to have like for a new hire, there should be a chapter within the playbook for onboarding, and it should be week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, et cetera, et cetera. And every week or every so often, like there's a theme for that week. So,
Okay.
and then once they're onboarded, all right, then they're going to focus in another area of the playbook. Um, that's so it should be both. The goal should be both. Um, in terms of how should we think about the playbook, again, like the playbook, I don't like it. It's just like it's like central command when there are sections of the playbook that is meant for training purposes. So an account executive would go in there either before their call or after their call to like improve on their skills. But there are sections in there that a salesperson would use live on a call. You should have and those are maybe battle cards or like frequently asked questions. Like there should be a section in the playbook called sales FAQs, which is like typical questions that prospects ask on calls, and the AE can have that readily open on a separate screen.
Got it. Got
Um,
it.
but
Yeah.
that's how I think about it.
Got it. Got it. And more, how frequently do you think like it should be revisited and updated? Like, is it like everyday basis, or because I'm pretty sure, right? Like when you get into the sales conversations, there are multiple prospects you talk to, and there are a lot of inputs which are coming your way. So, how to think about updating that sales playbook? What should be the frequency? Why I'm asking is because you have spent a lot of time, and your inputs will be really valuable.
Yeah. Well, initially it's going to be initially when you're building it out, you're
Mhm.
probably every day, every week, you're going to be updating
Okay.
it.
Mhm.
Um, but once you build out like, hey, what's the process for when a new lead comes through, and how do you handle that, and how do you run discovery, and how do you run a demo, and all those things. That once it's built out fully, in terms of iterating, maybe either one, like at a bare minimum, like once a month or once a quarter.
Okay.
Some sections could be left alone because you don't need to iterate. If you are adding fields or updating the CRM in terms of like RevOps is like maybe updating the CRM, there's like new fields you're adding that's required now. Well, you have to go into the playbook and make sure that section is updated. I
Got it.
think part of the playbook should also be tied to call recording software. So like something that I do is like if a company has Gong or whatever, or
Okay.
SalesLoft, these softwares have a sales library feature where you can build out a
Okay.
talk track list of different sections, create folders. And so that part should be updated on a weekly basis, because what you want to do is you want to create talk track snippets for different areas of a sales call of what good sounds like, and then update the library. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you do a good job, you should also point that into the playbook. And so
Got
that's a
it.
weekly thing. Um, if there's updates on the competitors, sometimes a competitor releases a new feature. Sometimes a competitor doesn't have a new feature. Sometimes your company has a product roadmap that every week or every 2 weeks you release a feature. Well, then in that case, the section of the playbook that has information on new new feature releases should
Mm-hmm.
be updated, and there should be a section within the playbook around new feature benefits and how to pitch that and how to present that and what questions to ask. That needs to be
Mm-hmm.
updated too. So that could depend on your roadmap also.
Great, great. No, this is like a very very valuable inputs. And uh, one last thing before we move further from the playbooks to like actual how to do better sales is so any thoughts more, because I was talking to a couple of fellow sales leader. They also have a mechanism to have a playbook scoring for the sales rep. What are your thoughts on that? Like, hey, like, does it make sense that you can score a person how the playbook, how well somebody is executing the playbooks, or do you think that is not going to add a lot of value? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it could be call scoring for sales calls,
Mhm.
or call scoring for like how they manage a deal, maybe. But playbook scoring, not so much. I've never heard that before,
Okay,
but I have heard of call scoring, like call scorecards. That you could
got
do for sure.
got it, got it. Great. More throughout your journey, right? Like you have scaled ARR rapidly and trained AEs to improve their demo conversions. What were key lessons you learned, or any challenges that you faced personally while scaling SaaS sales team that you wish to have been known earlier? Like more on what were the key lessons while helping AEs to improve their demo conversions, and couple of like challenges you have faced, or while scaling the sales team that you wish to have been known earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question won't apply, the answer won't apply to everybody because it's going to be based on my personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I started, like for one of the companies I was at, we didn't build a process for tomorrow because we
Okay.
haven't gotten there yet, and so we would say like we'll build it when we cross that bridge, and then we
Okay.
cross that bridge and we have to scramble to build it, and sometimes we don't have time to build it. Um,
Mhm.
and the other role as a VP of sales, that company operated differently. They wanted to build the train tracks before they had the train, before we were even crossing that path. And that was very different than my previous experience. And I was like, all right, let's see where this goes. And I actually liked it. So when we ended up crossing that bridge, so whether it was like we ended up hiring the salesperson, whether we released a new product, whatever it may be, we already had the system in place to operate it. Um, So I think as like at least in the early stage startup, you can get caught up in not creating systems because you're just surviving, but
Mhm.
you need to carve out time to build out these systems. Whether it's you wake up early, whether it's a little bit of work on the weekends or after hours, you have to build it out. We ended up. I only started building out the sales playbook in one of my first roles 2.5 years after. Right, so like I was 2 years, 2.5 years into the company before building out a process. So
Got it. Got it. So your recommendation is like sooner the better, have systems in place so
Sooner the
that
better.
yeah, and you can scale rapidly once you get
Yeah.
hang of things, right? Fair enough. Fair enough. Follow on to that more, right? Like just wanted to pick your brains in terms of approach, right? Uh, the sales process is pretty different, and the approach is pretty different in 0 to 1 or 0 to 2 journey, and 2 to 10 journey is like completely different. As a salesperson, I myself do a lot of sales. What do you recommend, right? Like in 0 to 2 journey, what are the key things which one should focus on, and 2 to 10, how differently you should focus on? Yeah,
Um.
because
Yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
just
Because
to
what?
yeah, just to add, right? Like in 2 to 10, you still have some level of referenceable customers to talk about, some learnings to talk about. In 0 to 2 or 0 to 1, the journey is like completely different. So how one should structure their pitch, or how they should structure their approach when they are going through a different journey, which is 0 to 1 and 1 to 10.
Well, 0 to 1. Um. In terms of pitch, if you don't, I mean, if you're at zero and you have no customers, and you talk about what you've done in the past and what you're building, but
Hmm.
you can go to 0 to 1 or 0 to 2 is not that different.
Yeah.
Um, I would say like once you go from like 1 to 5, you really need to have a process, procedures. You need to have the right. I think a big mistake companies make is they don't have enough data to make business decisions, and they don't track it when they're at 0 to 1. And
Hmm.
so when they get to a stage of like, all right, I need to like now scale my company to like 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, whatever it is, um, th- they haven't been disciplined to keep their CRM updated with the accurate information. And so when they hire or they try to scale, like they just don't have the data. They don't have the right reporting. I would do that on day one. I think it's just a little harder to do it when you're at zero, because you probably don't have the same repeatable customers. You're probably just taking whatever you can get. Your job is to survive.
Hmm.
Um, you're probably more likely to be flexible and giving discounts when you're at zero, because you want to get customers and just optimize for growth and not revenue. Um, you may hire people that are not qualified because you just need them. You don't know what you're doing. There's going to be a lot of mistakes. You're not tracking the right things. Um, yeah, those are like some big differences, honestly.
Got it. Got it. Fair enough. I think we'll make a note of it and keep that in mind. More one of the things which we came to learn is you have spent a lot of time in building playbooks for writing effective cold emails and sequences, right? And building a structure talk track for calls. So can you talk more about it? How one should think about when executing a champion kind of a cold email campaigns, or like cold call kind of a campaigns? What should be a couple of things that one should keep in mind while executing them?
Well, the cold emails should. It depends if you're going to go a one-to-one route, which is it a very
Mm-hmm.
custom email or one-to-many?
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on the size of your company and or the size of your contract values. But general rule of thumb is the email should be all about the prospect's problem. It shouldn't be a matter of fact tone, which means you don't know if the prospect is having that problem. You're assuming. So that email should be sent out in a way where you're actually unsure. There should be an unsure tone in the email. And the goal of the email is not to get a call on the calendar. The goal of the email is to validate the assumption. Um, right? Like
Okay.
that's a big one. So like I'm not going to email somebody like and say, hey, I see that you've just hired a bunch of an account executive. We help AEs ramp up, blah blah blah. Do you want to get on a call? I don't know that
Yeah.
that is true. Like maybe they have that problem. Like so, hey, I saw you hired a bunch of AEs. A lot of companies at this stage tell me that like the AEs are not onboarding as fast as they should, like within 3 months. Wondering if that's something that's happening with you, right? Like that would be the call to action more than anything. So I need to validate that problem, um, and then focus on one problem for one email. Don't try to pack two problems in one email. Have social proof in your email, so credibility. Who have you helped that prospect would be familiar with? And if they heard it, like, oh, okay, this person's legit. And then don't just stick to email. Use LinkedIn. comment and engage on the prospect's posts, have them recognize your name, DM them, send them videos on LinkedIn, DMs and voice notes. These are just like some of like tips that you'll just you'll outperform your typical emails if you implement.
Completely agree that, more. I think got the framework. Like keep it very contextually relevant to make it to make sure that you get better response rate rather than just asking them for time, right? So fair enough. More one of the you have created a very popular podcast, right? Which is SaaS Talk, from lead to close, uh, where where you share a lot of like sales strategies and insight. Can you tell us more about your motivation behind the project and what listeners can expect from that podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't created an episode in a very, very long time. But yeah, the intention of the podcast was just to give really tactical sales tips. Most podcasts and most sales podcasts are minimum 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. And there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of bullshit talk. How is the weather? Where are you based out of? There's personal inside jokes. It's just not entertaining. And then if you really were to strip down the podcast to its core and take away only the tips, the tactical stuff, it's probably only 10 minutes worth of tactical gold. And I think we live in a time where we're information rich and time
Mm-hmm.
poor. That's Marty Neumeyer, who wrote the book Zag. He says that we live in a time where we're information rich, time poor. People don't have the time to sit through 40 minutes worth of information. They want get in, get out.
Okay.
And so I was like, all right, well, let me. Plus, I don't have editing skills, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to hire a video editor. I'm like, what's the quickest way to launch a podcast where I don't have to edit the videos, where it can be very, very tactile and people get a ton of value. I'm like, oh, let me just create really short 2, 3, 4 minute episodes, really just quick tips. And that's what I did. And I created that podcast. And from time to time, I'll have like a guest. But again, I haven't uploaded an episode in a very long time. At the time when I was uploading, I was getting thousands of downloads a month. I'll
Wow.
probably pick it up. I'm not going to close it down because it's people still listen to it. I get leads from it, but I'll probably update the episode soon with some more episodes.
Oh, absolutely. Looking forward to it more. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to follow that, and everyone on this call is going to do that as well. More one last question before we hang up is based on your experience, and which is like quite an impressive one. What is the single most important piece of advice you would give to someone who is just starting in SaaS sales? Like basic 3 pointers or 4 pointers.
It depends. What position are they starting in?
Okay, so maybe we'll take, let's say, somebody who is starting as a VP of sales in a early stage SaaS startup.
Get a mentor, get a coach. I would say that's the first thing you should do. Get
Okay.
somebody that's done it before that you
Mm-hmm.
can lean on, you can meet with on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And I'd probably give the same advice to anybody that's an AE or manager or an SDR or whatever it is. Get a coach. It's probably the most underrated hack
Mm-hmm.
to success. And I've only realized it in the last 2 years because the last 2 years ago I got a coach, I invested in a coach, and something I should have done a long time ago, and it's something I should have done when I was a VP of sales. And I didn't. I just tried to figure it out on my own, and I was like, oh, I can't get a coach. It's gonna be frowned upon. Bullshit. Get a coach, get a mentor.
Got it. That is something I think everybody on the call would appreciate, because this is where right more we get a lot of questions like uh, what are the things we should do right when we are starting in sales, right? So I think getting a mentor who can navigate you and help you think about the problems which you might come up with, right? So fair enough.
Yeah.
Great. With that, more, I think we are almost like end to this LinkedIn Live. Thank
Yes.
you so much for taking our time and talking to us. I have personally learned a lot, and I'm pretty sure in the audience, everybody must have learned a lot as well. If we have any questions, we will try to reach out and pose that questions to you as well. And thank you so much, more, for taking
They
our
bet.
time and
Appreciate
talking.
you having me. Yeah.
All right.